Ambassador Trell adjusted his ceremonial robes as the holographic projection flickered to life before him. The primitive planet called Earth appeared in the center of the council chamber, spinning slowly like a child's toy. He couldn't help but smile at the audacity of these newcomers who dared to expand beyond their single star system without permission. Behind him, 46 other species representatives sat in their elevated seats, each one representing thousands of years of civilization and power. The humans had been in space for barely 3 centuries, yet they acted as if they owned the galaxy. "Attention inhabitants of Earth," Trell began, his voice amplified across subspace channels that would reach the human homeworld in moments. "The Galactic Council has observed your unauthorized expansion into 14 star systems. You have established colonies without seeking approval from the governing body of this galaxy. This transgression cannot be ignored." He paused, letting his words sink in across the vast distance. "You have 24 hours to surrender all military assets and submit to protective custody. Failure to comply will result in immediate corrective action." Trell ended the transmission and turned to Elder Vorn, whose species had ruled the council for longer than most civilizations had existed. The ancient being's 3 eyes blinked in succession, a sign of amusement among his kind. "Do you think they will resist?" Vorn asked, his voice like grinding stones. "They always do at first," Trell replied confidently. "But they learn quickly enough. Our records show we have pacified 10,000 species using this exact method. The humans will be no different." Halfway across the solar system, General Patricia Hayes sat in the command center beneath Geneva, watching the alien transmission play for the 3rd time. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her uniform showed decades of service medals. Around her, military leaders from every nation on Earth watched in silence. When the message ended, nobody spoke for a full minute. "Opinions?" Hayes finally asked, breaking the tension. "Arrogant," muttered Admiral Park, commander of Earth's Pacific Fleet. "They assume we will just roll over." "They have reason to be confident," said Director Wilson from the Intelligence Division. "Our satellites detected their station orbiting Neptune 3 weeks ago. The energy readings suggest weapons capable of cracking planets. Their fleet consists of 200 warships, each larger than our biggest carrier." Hayes nodded slowly, then typed a simple response into the communication system. 2 words appeared on the screen. "Negative, reconsider." She transmitted it on the same frequency the Council had used. "That is all we are sending?" asked General Santos from South America. "That is all they deserve," Hayes replied. "Now we wait to see if they are smart enough to back down." The response reached Trell within minutes. He stared at the message in disbelief before sharing it with the council chamber. Laughter erupted from multiple species. Even Elder Vorn's massive form shook with what might have been amusement. "They dare to refuse," Trell said incredulously. "Elder Vorn, I request permission to demonstrate the consequences of their defiance." "Granted," Vorn rumbled. "Take the fleet to Mars, show them we are serious. If they still refuse, destroy one of their colony domes. That usually convinces primitives to cooperate." 200 warships began moving from Neptune's orbit, their engines creating gravitational distortions that Earth's sensors detected immediately. In the Geneva Command Center, alarms began sounding. Displays showed the alien fleet advancing at speeds that would bring them to Mars in less than 6 hours. "Here we go," Hayes said quietly. She pulled up a file on her personal terminal, one marked with the highest security classification. The label read, "First Contact Protocols Hostile Scenario." She entered her command codes and watched as the file opened. "What is that?" asked Admiral Park, leaning closer. "Something we have been preparing for 80 years, Hayes explained. "When we first detected alien surveillance probes in 1945, world leaders made a decision. We would appear primitive and harmless while secretly preparing for the worst-case scenario." "You mean all our civilian expansion was a cover?" Wilson asked, his eyes widening. "Not a cover," Hayes corrected. "Everything we built in space was real. The colonies, the research stations, the mining operations, but each one also served a military purpose. Every asteroid we hollowed out for minerals, we filled with weapon platforms. Every satellite we launched for communications had hidden capabilities. Every research station had a secret armory. We have been building an invisible military network throughout the entire solar system. Admiral Park stared at the general in shock. How many people knew about this? 3 generations of soldiers, engineers, and scientists, Hayes replied. All sworn to absolute secrecy. The aliens were watching us, so we gave them exactly what they expected to see. A young species, barely capable of reaching their own moon, fumbling around in space like children. Meanwhile, we weaponized everything. She pulled up another screen showing a tactical display of the solar system. Red dots appeared throughout the asteroid belt, around Mars, near Jupiter, and hidden among the Kuiper Belt objects. Thousands of red dots, each representing a weapon platform or hidden military installation. "My God," whispered General Santos, "how much firepower are we talking about?" "Enough to make them regret threatening us," Hayes said coldly. She activated the command channel and spoke clearly. "All stations, this is Geneva Actual. Protocol Nightfall is now active. Repeat, Protocol Nightfall is active. Authorization Hayes Alpha 77 Echo. Acknowledge." Across the solar system, hidden installations began powering up. Soldiers who had trained in secret their entire careers moved to battle stations. Weapons that had been disguised as mining equipment or scientific instruments revealed their true nature. Earth's real military might was about to be unveiled after 80 years of deception. On the Neptune Council station, Ambassador Trell watched his fleet approach Mars with satisfaction. Sensors showed the planet's small colony domes, fragile and undefended. The humans would learn their place soon enough. Elder Vorn had given permission to destroy one dome as a warning. Trell was deciding which one when his tactical officer suddenly stiffened. "Ambassador, we are detecting unusual energy signatures." The officer's tentacles moved frantically across his controls. "Multiple sources throughout the inner system. They were not there during our previous scans." "Explain," Trell demanded. "I cannot. They appeared simultaneously as if they were somehow hidden before." The officer looked up, fear in his multiple eyes. "Ambassador, those are not civilian installations. Those are military-grade power signatures." Trell felt cold dread forming in his core. "How many?" "Counting now." The officer's voice trembled. 200, no. 500, no." He turned to Trell, his expression horrified. "Over." 2,000, Ambassador. We are detecting over 2,000 hidden military installations. In the Geneva Command Center, Hayes watched the alien fleet hesitate as their sensors finally detected what had been hidden for 8 decades. She allowed herself a small smile. "Let us show them what happens when you threaten Earth." Admiral Cross had commanded Council fleets for 600 years, and never once had he felt fear. His species was bred for war, with 4 arms designed to operate multiple weapon systems simultaneously. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the forward tactical display with growing unease. 20 of his best warships had broken formation to fire warning shots at Earth's moon, their plasma cannons charging with enough energy to vaporize a mountain. "Fire when ready," Cross ordered, his confidence absolute. These humans would see one demonstration of Council power and surrender immediately, just like every other primitive species before them. The weapons officer triggered the firing sequence. Plasma bolts lanced toward the lunar surface, each one carrying enough destructive force to create a crater visible from Earth. But the bolts never reached their target. Something intercepted them halfway, and the tactical display suddenly filled with new contacts. "What is happening?" Cross demanded, his 4 arms gripping the command console. "Unknown objects are activating throughout the system," his sensor officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. "They were disguised as asteroids and debris. They are moving now." Before Cross could respond, the objects opened fire. What he thought were simple space rocks revealed themselves as sophisticated weapon platforms. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds, each one a kinetic projectile that ignored energy shields entirely. The Council's defensive technology was designed to stop plasma and laser weapons, not solid metal traveling at relativistic speeds. The first rod punched through the shields of his lead destroyer as if they did not exist. It penetrated the hull, traveled through 3 decks, and exploded inside the ship's reactor core. The destroyer vanished in a flash of white light. Before Cross could process what happened, 14 more ships disappeared from his tactical display. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted, but it was too late. The humans had planned this perfectly, every weapon platform fired in. Coordinated volleys, their targeting systems linked across vast distances. His ships tried to scatter, but the human weapons tracked them with precision his own military could not match. Communications with his fleet became impossible. Somehow the humans were jamming every frequency the Council used. Cross realized with horror that these primitives had been studying Council technology for decades, learning weaknesses while appearing harmless. 30 of his ships were gone now, and the massacre had barely begun. On Earth, General Hayes watched the battle unfold across multiple displays. Her expression remained neutral, but inside she felt satisfaction. 80 years of planning and preparation were paying off. The weapon platforms she watched firing now had been built by 3 generations of soldiers and engineers, all working in absolute secrecy. "Status report," she commanded. "First wave successful," Admiral Park replied. 38 enemy vessels destroyed, 0 human casualties. Enemy communications are completely jammed. They cannot coordinate their fleet. "Good," Hayes said. "Lieutenant Foster, activate the second wave." Throughout the asteroid belt, what appeared to be comets suddenly changed course. These were not ice and rock, but sophisticated missile platforms that had waited decades for this moment. Each missile carried an artificial intelligence system immune to jamming. They accelerated toward the confused Council fleet, their trajectories impossible to predict. Admiral Cross watched helplessly as his remaining ships were systematically destroyed. The missiles did not explode on impact. Instead, they penetrated shields and hulls before detonating inside his warships. His crew fought bravely, returning fire when they could, but they were shooting at targets that moved with inhuman precision. No living pilot could match the reflexive speed of human artificial intelligence. "Send a distress signal to Neptune Station," Cross ordered desperately. "Tell Elder Vorn we need reinforcements immediately. Tell him these humans are not primitive." The communications officer tried every frequency, every protocol, but the human jamming was absolute. They were isolated, alone, and dying. Cross made a decision that would haunt his surviving crew. All ships retreat at maximum speed. Abandon formation. Survival is now the priority. But retreat was impossible. The humans had positioned weapon platforms along every escape route. Cross realized too late that this was not a battle but an ambush. The humans had spent decades placing weapons throughout the solar system, turning their home into a fortress. His invasion fleet had flown into a trap. Far from the battle, 2 members of the archivist species watched from their cloaked observation post. Rem and Della had documented galactic conflicts for 10,000 years, always neutral, always recording. They existed to preserve history, not to interfere. But what they witnessed now defied everything they thought they knew. "This is impossible," Rem said quietly, his voice translator converting his thoughts to words. "The humans have been in space for 300 years. The Council has existed for 50,000 years. How can primitives defeat such advanced technology?" Della reviewed the sensor data again, checking for errors. "They are not primitives," she realized. "They never were. Look at this carefully. Every weapon they are using is specifically designed to counter Council defenses. That requires detailed knowledge of our technology." "They have been preparing for this," Rem understood suddenly. "For how long?" "Decades at minimum," Della calculated. "Perhaps longer. They detected Council surveillance and chose to appear weak while secretly arming themselves. They turned deception into a strategic weapon." "We must warn the Council," Rem said urgently. "Will they listen?" Della asked. Elder Vorn believes humans are primitives. He will dismiss any evidence that contradicts his assumptions. Pride will be his downfall. Back at Neptune Station, Ambassador Trell finally received fragmentary reports from the battle. What he read made his blood run cold. 200 warships reduced to 70 in less than 20 minutes. No survivors from the destroyed vessels. Communications with the fleet completely cut off. And worst of all, reports of thousands of hidden human weapons. He rushed to Elder Vorn's chamber, where the ancient being sat in meditation. Elder, we must recall the fleet immediately. The humans have military capabilities we never detected. Our forces are being slaughtered. Vorn's 3 eyes opened slowly. Impossible, he said with absolute certainty. No species developed such technology in 300 years. Admiral Cross must have made tactical errors. He is simply embarrassed to admit failure. But Elder, the reports... Silence, Vorn commanded. I will not accept that primitives have defeated Council might. Send the core fleet, 1,000 warships. Let us see how these humans handle real military power. And Trell, when we crush them, I want their homeworld to serve as an example. We will turn Earth into a monument to Council authority. Trell wanted to argue, to show Vorn the data, to make him understand the danger. But challenging an elder was unthinkable. He bowed and left to carry out the orders. Deep inside, however, he feared they were making a terrible mistake. In the asteroid belt, the last ships of Admiral Cross's fleet were destroyed. Not a single Council vessel escaped. The entire invasion force was eliminated in under 30 minutes. Throughout the solar system, human weapon platforms went silent, waiting for the next threat. General Hayes authorized a message to be broadcast on all galactic frequencies. It was simple and direct. The Galactic Council attacked Earth without provocation. Their fleet has been destroyed. We seek peace, but we are prepared for war. Any further aggression will be met with total retaliation. Across the galaxy, thousands of species received the message. Most dismissed it as propaganda. A few, however, began to wonder if the Council had finally met an opponent they could not defeat. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Elder Vorn's core fleet began its journey toward Earth, carrying 1,000 warships to crush what he believed were lucky primitives. The war was just beginning. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, beyond the orbit of Neptune, massive structures began to stir. These were not asteroids or debris, but carefully camouflaged shipyards. For 60 years, human engineers had worked in absolute secrecy, building a fleet that would shock the galaxy. Hangar doors carved into ice formations slowly opened, revealing what humanity had truly been doing while the Council watched their civilian expansion. Admiral David Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, a warship named Defiance. Around him, 499 other human vessels powered up their systems. These ships were nothing like Council designs. They were smaller, faster, and built with one purpose: to hunt and destroy larger opponents through coordinated attacks. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. Set course to intercept the core fleet, Park ordered calmly. They want to see Earth's real military. Let us not disappoint them. Supreme Admiral Thorn commanded the Council's core fleet with absolute authority. His species had evolved from predators, and his mind was built for strategy. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and never lost a battle in 800 years of service. Now he led 1,000 warships toward a planet he had never heard of until yesterday. Analysis of the previous engagement, Thorn asked his tactical officer. The humans used kinetic weapons and electronic warfare, the officer replied. Admiral Cross's fleet was unprepared for such primitive tactics. They relied too heavily on energy shields. Primitive tactics that destroyed 200 ships, Thorn mused. There is nothing primitive about their execution. Whoever planned that defense understood our weaknesses perfectly. They have been studying us. Do you believe we are walking into a trap? His second-in-command asked. Absolutely, Thorn confirmed. But they have 500 ships at most. We have 1,000. Numbers will prevail. However, we must not underestimate them again. New orders. All ships maintain scattered formation, maximum distance between vessels. If they can jam our communications, we cannot allow them to isolate us. The core fleet adjusted its approach, spreading out across millions of kilometers. It was good tactics, but Thorn could not shake the feeling he was missing something important. The two fleets met between Neptune and Uranus in empty space where nothing should have existed. Human sensors detected the Council formation first. Admiral Park studied the enemy deployment and smiled. They had learned from their mistakes. Spreading out would make coordination harder, but it would also divide their firepower. They are trying to prevent us from isolating their ships, his tactical officer observed. Then we will give them what they expect, Park replied. All squadrons break into assault groups, alpha pattern, engage at will. The human fleet split into 50 groups of 10 ships each. They accelerated toward the Council formation from multiple vectors. Their movements synchronized through quantum communication systems the Council could not jam. It looked like chaos, but every ship knew exactly where it needed to be. Thorn watched the human vessels scatter and felt admiration despite himself. They fight like a pack, not an army, he said. Interesting, all ships prepare for close combat, target the small groups as they approach, concentrate fire. His fleet opened fire first. Plasma bolts and energy beams lanced through space, trying to catch the darting human vessels. But the human ships moved with impossible agility, their artificial intelligence systems predicting and dodging fire before it reached them. A few shots connected, damaging human vessels, but most missed entirely. Then the humans returned fire. They did not use plasma or lasers. Instead, they launched electromagnetic pulse missiles that detonated near Council ships, temporarily disabling their shields. In the brief window of vulnerability, railgun projectiles followed, punching through armor and destroying critical systems. It was a 1-2 attack that the Council had no counter for. They are using combined weapons, Thorn realized. One attack creates an opening, the second exploits it. Brilliant. His ships began falling, not quickly but steadily. The humans darted in, struck hard, and retreated before his forces could concentrate fire. They fought like wolves hunting prey, wearing down larger opponents through repeated attacks. Thorn had faced many enemies, but never one that combined such advanced technology with such ruthless efficiency. Casualties? He asked after the first hour. 180 ships lost or disabled, his tactical officer reported grimly. The humans have lost only 9 vessels. Thorn made a decision that would change everything. He opened a private channel to the human flagship. Using encryption he hoped they could decode. He was a warrior, not a fanatic. He knew when a battle was lost. Human Commander, this is Supreme Admiral Thorn. I request a private communication. On the defiance, Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. Patch him through. Let us hear what he has to say. Thorn's image appeared on the screen, a towering figure with 6 eyes and chitinous armor. I wish to surrender my fleet, he said simply. Elder Vorn ordered this attack against my advice. Your tactics are superior, your weapons are superior, and continuing this battle serves no purpose. Park studied the alien commander carefully. Why should I trust you? Because I am a soldier, not a politician, Thorn replied. I have studied your species since the first engagement. You could have destroyed every ship in Admiral Cross's fleet, but you let survivors escape to carry the warning. You could have struck Neptune's station, but you chose to defend rather than attack. You do not fight like conquerors. You fight like protectors. What do you want? Park asked. To prevent more needless death, Thorn said. Elder Vorn will never surrender. His pride will not allow it. He will throw every ship, every soldier, every resource at Earth until nothing remains. I have access to Council defense networks. I can help you end this quickly. Park considered carefully. This could be a trap, but something in the alien's manner suggested honesty. What guarantee do I have? None, Thorn admitted. Only my word as a warrior. I have seen too many good soldiers die for the vanity of ancient beings who cannot accept that their time has passed. Let me help you finish this before the galaxy drowns in blood. Park made his decision. Cease fire. All human ships, cease fire. Admiral Thorne, you will transmit your surrender to the remaining Council vessels. Any that choose to join you will be spared. Any that continue fighting will be destroyed. Thorne broadcast his surrender across his fleet. Some ships followed him immediately. Others continued fighting, loyal to Vorn unto death. The battle raged for another hour, but the outcome was inevitable. Of 1,000 ships, 300 surrendered, 400 were destroyed, and 300 retreated toward Neptune. Representative Pin watched from the council station as reports arrived of the fleet's destruction. She was young for a council member, only 500 years old, and she understood what the elders refused to accept. The galaxy was changing, and the council's age of absolute power was ending. Elder Vorn, we must negotiate, she pleaded. The humans have destroyed our fleets. They have superior technology and strategy. Continuing this war will destroy us. Silence, Vorn roared. The Council has ruled for 50,000 years. I will not allow primitives to end our reign. If we cannot conquer them, we will destroy them and everything within 5 light-years of their world. Activate the obliteration protocol. Pin felt horror wash over her. The obliteration protocol was a weapon of last resort, designed millennia ago. If activated, it would create a chain reaction that would destroy everything in the region, including Earth and dozens of inhabited systems. You cannot, she whispered. That would be genocide on a scale. Never seen. Then let it be a lesson, Vorn said coldly. If the Council cannot rule, there will be nothing left to rule. Captain Rodriguez checked his assault rifle one final time as the boarding pod shuddered around him. 49 other soldiers sat in silence, each one trained for exactly this mission. They were Stryker Group, Earth's elite special forces, and they had less than 2 hours to prevent galactic genocide. 2 minutes to breach, the pilot announced over the comm system. Rodriguez looked at his team. Some were veterans of the Mars colonies, others were young soldiers who had trained their entire lives for space combat. All of them knew they might not survive the next hour. Remember your training, he said calmly. We go in fast, we move as one unit, and we do not stop until that weapon is offline. Admiral Park had detected the massive energy buildup inside Neptune Station 30 minutes ago. Former Admiral Thorne identified it immediately as the obliteration protocol. According to his intelligence, the weapon would reach critical mass in 90 minutes. There was no time for a fleet assault. The only option was a direct boarding action. The pod slammed into the station's outer hull with brutal force. Cutting lasers activated automatically, slicing through alien metal. Rodriguez was first through the breach, his weapon raised. They entered into a cargo bay filled with automated defense drones. The drones opened fire instantly, energy beams cutting through the darkness. EMP out, someone shouted. Rodriguez ducked as an electromagnetic pulse grenade detonated, frying every electronic system in the bay. The drones dropped from the air, their circuits burned. Human weapons did not rely on sophisticated electronics. They were designed to function even when technology failed. Move, Rodriguez ordered. His team split into 3 squads, each heading for different objectives. Lieutenant Foster's squad would secure the power core. Sergeant Chen's squad would hack the central computer. Rodriguez would lead the main assault to the weapon control center in the station's heart. They moved through corridors designed for beings twice their size. Council architecture was built for intimidation, with high ceilings and wide passages. It made movement easier, but also left them exposed. Council guards appeared, firing energy weapons. Rodriguez's team returned fire with kinetic rounds that punched. Through alien armor. Inside the control center, Elder Vorn watched security monitors showing the human intrusion. Representative Pin stood beside him, trying one final time to reason with the ancient being. They are here to stop the weapon, she said desperately. Let them. Accept defeat before you destroy everything. Never, Vorn said, his 3 eyes fixed on the activation console. I have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. I watched species rise and fall. I brought order to chaos. And now primitives think they can dictate terms to me. His hand moved closer to the final activation button. If I cannot rule, then let there be nothing left to rule. Pin made a decision that would define her entire life. She lunged forward, trying to stop Vorn, but despite his age, he was immensely strong. He struck her with one arm, sending her crashing into a console. "You were always weak," he said with contempt. "That is why your species will never lead." Rodriguez's squad fought through 3 security checkpoints, each one defended by council guards who fought with fanatic determination. The humans used grenades, suppressing fire, and ruthless efficiency. They were outnumbered but better trained. Every soldier knew that failure meant death for billions. "Status," Rodriguez called over the comm. "Power core secured," Foster reported. "But the weapon has manual overrides. Shutting down power will not stop it." "Central computer accessed," Chen added. "The weapon's design is insane. Once it reaches critical mass, nothing can stop the chain reaction. We have 40 minutes. "Then we do this the hard way," Rodriguez said grimly. "All squads converge on the control center." They reached the final corridor leading to the control center. 200 council guards blocked their path. These were not regular soldiers, but Elder Vorn's personal guard, each one a warrior enhanced through genetic modification. They stood in perfect formation, weapons ready, willing to die for their master. "Grenades!" Rodriguez shouted. His team threw every explosive they had. The corridor filled with fire and smoke. The guards charged through it, their enhanced bodies absorbing damage that would kill normal beings. Hand-to-hand combat erupted. Humans fought with knives and rifle butts against aliens with 4 arms and armored skin. Rodriguez found himself facing the guard commander, a massive being with 6 eyes and muscles that looked like steel cables. The alien struck with incredible speed. Rodriguez barely dodged, feeling the air displacement from the blow. He could not match the alien's strength, so he used speed and unpredictability. Humans learned fighting from animals, from dancing, from chaos. The alien fought with discipline and pattern. Rodriguez feinted left, rolled right, and drove his combat knife into the joint where the alien's armor met. The guard commander roared in pain. Rodriguez twisted the blade and pulled his sidearm, firing point-blank into the wound. The commander fell, and the remaining guards, seeing their leader defeated, hesitated. That moment of doubt was all the humans needed. They breached the control center door with explosive charges. Rodriguez entered first, his weapon scanning for threats. He saw Elder Vorn at the console, hand hovering over the activation button. Representative Pin lay injured nearby. The clock showed 15 minutes remaining. "Step away from the controls," Rodriguez ordered, aiming his rifle at Vorn. The ancient being turned slowly, studying the human with contempt. "You think you can stop me with that primitive weapon?" he asked. "I have lived for 3 millennia. I have seen empires rise and fall. What makes you think one human soldier can change anything?" "Because I am not alone," Rodriguez replied. Behind him, his team entered, weapons ready. "You are." Vorn's hand moved toward the button. Rodriguez's finger tightened on the trigger. But before either could act, Representative Pin spoke, her voice weak but clear. "Vorn, please, remember what the Council was supposed to be. We were created to protect the galaxy, not destroy it. You have forgotten your purpose." "My purpose is to rule," Vorn said coldly. "No," Pin said, pulling herself up despite her injuries. "Your purpose was to serve, to guide, to protect. You turned service into tyranny. You turned guidance into control. You betrayed everything we were meant to be." For the first time in 3,000 years, Vorn hesitated. In that moment of doubt, Rodriguez saw something that shocked him. The ancient being was not evil. He was afraid. Afraid of being forgotten, afraid that his civilization's legacy would end, afraid that everything he built meant nothing. "You will not be forgotten," Rodriguez said quietly. "But how you are remembered depends on what you do right now. You can die as a tyrant who tried to destroy billions, or you can live to see what comes next." The clock showed 10 minutes. Vorn's hand shook. Representative Pin limped toward him, speaking in their native language. Rodriguez could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. It was compassion, not condemnation. "I have ruled for so long," Vorn said, his voice suddenly tired. "I do not know how to do anything else." "Then learn," Pin said gently. "We all must learn to let go." Vorn looked at the activation button, at the countdown, at the human soldiers who had fought through his defenses. He looked at Pin, who offered him not hatred but understanding. His hand moved away from the button. "I surrender." The words came out as a whisper, then louder, "I surrender." He began entering the shutdown sequence. The weapon powered down, the energy readings dropped. The countdown stopped with 3 minutes remaining. Rodriguez lowered his weapon, releasing a breath he did not know he was holding. Admiral Park's voice came through the comm. "Status." "Mission accomplished," Rodriguez reported. "The weapon is offline. Repeat, the weapon is offline." Across the galaxy, billions of beings who did not know how close they came to extinction continued their lives. On Neptune's station, an ancient tyrant fell to his knees, finally accepting that his time had ended. And Representative Pin, bleeding but determined, began the work of building something new from the ruins of the old. The Council's reign was over. What came next would define the galaxy's future. 6 months had passed since the Council's defeat, and the galaxy looked nothing like it had before. General Hayes stood before representatives from 200 different species, all gathered in a neutral space station humanity had helped construct. The old council chamber on Neptune had been dismantled. This new meeting place was designed for equals, not rulers and subjects. "Thank you for coming," Hayes began, her voice translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We are here to decide the galaxy's future. Earth does not seek to replace the Council. We seek to build something better with all of you." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species were eager for change, others fearful. Ambassador Krell, representing one of the old Council loyalist species, stood to speak. "The humans defeated us through superior weapons," he said carefully. "But weapons do not make you qualified to govern. The Council ruled for 50,000 years because we understood the complexities of galactic civilization. The Council ruled through fear and force," Representative Pin countered. She had recovered from her injuries and now spoke for those species that had suffered under Council authority. "They suppressed technology to maintain control. They destroyed species that refused submission. They called it order, but it was tyranny." The debate continued for hours. Hayes listened carefully, understanding that Earth's role was not to dictate but to facilitate. Humanity had won the war, but winning the peace required cooperation. Finally, she stood to speak again. "We propose a democratic galactic assembly," she said. "Every species receives representation based on population. Decisions are made by majority vote. Military force is used only for defense. Technology and knowledge are shared freely. No species rules over another." The chamber erupted in discussion. Such a system had never existed in recorded galactic history. Chancellor Bryn, whose species had been enslaved by the Council for 10,000 years, stood with tears in his eyes. "For my entire life I have dreamed of such freedom," he said. "I support this proposal completely." But Ambassador Krell shook his head. "Democracy is chaos," he argued. "You will spend years debating while threats grow. The Council system was efficient because decisions were made quickly by those with experience." "Efficient at oppression," Pin said sharply. "Quick at conquest. The Council's experience was in maintaining power, not in serving the galaxy's people." Hayes let them argue, knowing that democracy meant accepting disagreement. After 2 weeks of debate, they called for a vote. Species cast their decisions publicly, explaining their reasoning. Some voted for the assembly out of hope. Others voted against out of fear. Several abstained, wanting to observe before committing. The final count was announced. 127 in favor, 58 against, 15 abstaining. The Democratic Galactic Assembly was approved. Cheers erupted from many delegations while others sat in worried silence. Hayes felt the weight of responsibility. Humanity had started something that would reshape the galaxy for generations. Elder Vorn watched the proceedings from a special chamber. He was no longer imprisoned, but not free. The tribunal had sentenced him to serve as a historian and advisor, his vast knowledge preserved but his power removed. He would spend his remaining centuries teaching future generations about the Council's mistakes. "You are satisfied with this chaos?" he asked the guard, a human soldier named Private Wilson. "It is not chaos," Wilson replied. "It is people choosing their own future. That is what freedom looks like." "Freedom leads to conflict," Vorn said bitterly. "Without strong leadership, species will fight each other." "Maybe," Wilson admitted, "but they will fight as equals, not as masters and slaves. If they fail, it will be their choice. That matters." Vorn said nothing. He watched species that he once ruled now voting on their destiny. Part of him felt vindicated whenever disagreements arose. But another part, when he tried to ignore, felt something he had not experienced in 3,000 years. Hope that perhaps these newcomers understood something he had forgotten. The Assembly's first actions included establishing mutual defense agreements and beginning technology sharing programs. Earth opened its military academies to alien students. Other species shared their knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and energy production. Former Admiral Thorne became a liaison between human and alien forces, helping both sides understand each other. "You surprise me," Admiral Park said to Thorne during one planning session. "I expected you to resist this new order." "I am a soldier," Thorne replied. "I follow orders and serve my people. The difference now is that I serve by protecting, not conquering. It is more satisfying than I expected." Not everything was peaceful. Some former council species refused to join the Assembly. They formed their own confederation, viewing Earth's influence with suspicion. Pirate groups exploited the transition period, raiding vulnerable systems. The Assembly's first real test came when 12 agricultural worlds faced famine due to disrupted trade routes. Earth led the relief effort, but dozens of other species contributed. Ships from former enemies worked together to transport food and supplies. The crisis was resolved through cooperation, proving that the Assembly could function in emergency. It was not perfect, but it worked. Rem and Della, the archivist observers who had documented the entire conflict, prepared their final report. They had recorded everything from the Council's initial threat to the Assembly's formation. "What conclusion do we write?" Rem asked his partner. "That humanity introduced something unprecedented," Della replied thoughtfully. "They won through superior preparation and strategy, but they chose to lead through inspiration rather than domination. Whether this experiment succeeds long-term remains unknown, but it represents the most significant shift in galactic governance in recorded history." "Should we note the risks?" Rem asked. "Absolutely," Della confirmed. "Democracy is fragile. It requires constant effort and vigilance. Many species are not ready for such responsibility. Conflicts will arise, but—" she paused, choosing her words carefully. "For the first time in our 10,000 years of observation, we see a civilization that defeated its enemies and then offered them partnership instead of subjugation. That deserves documentation." On Earth, Captain Rodriguez returned to a hero's welcome, but he chose not to celebrate. Instead, he became an instructor, training the next generation of soldiers in both combat and diplomacy. "War is sometimes necessary," he told his students. "But the goal is always peace. Never forget that." General Hayes, now promoted to Earth's Chief of Defense, sat alone in her office late one night. She reviewed casualty reports from the conflict. 3,000 humans had died defending their world. Tens of thousands of aliens had perished in the fighting. She wondered if there could have been another way. A message arrived from a distant colony world. They thanked Earth for inspiration. They had established their first democratic government and wanted to join the Assembly. Hayes smiled slightly. Perhaps the cost had been worth it. Perhaps humanity's gift to the galaxy was not superior weapons, but the idea that freedom was possible. 50 years later, a young alien student studied at Earth's Galactic Academy. She learned about the Council War, the transformation, the Assembly's formation. Her teacher, an elderly human veteran, explained. Power is not about having the biggest weapons. It is about knowing when to fight and when to build. The council forgot that. We made sure the galaxy remembered. Will the assembly last forever? The student asked. Nothing lasts forever, the teacher replied honestly. But while it lasts, we make it count. We prove that different species can work together as equals. We show that democracy, for all its flaws, is better than tyranny. And most importantly, we remember that peace is worth fighting for. The student looked at the memorial wall, where names of those who died in the war were inscribed. Humans and aliens together, all honored equally. She understood then what her teacher meant. The Council War was not just about military victory. It was about proving that a better galaxy was possible. Outside the Academy, ships from dozens of species traveled freely through space, trading, cooperating, occasionally disagreeing, but always talking. The democratic Galactic Assembly flag flew alongside Earth's and 100 others. It showed a circle of stars around a rising sun, representing the dawn of a new era. Humanity had entered the galaxy as newcomers, been threatened with extinction, and emerged as leaders. But they led not through conquest, but through example. They showed that strength could be tempered with mercy, that victory could be gracious, and that the future belonged to those willing to share it. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.